In a day and age where the average price of a new car is pushing $47,000, it's always refreshing to see a manufacturer invest in a new affordable vehicle. The car standing behind me is the all-new next generation 2025 Nissan Kicks. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this affordable crossover and how it stacks up against the competition being the Chevy Trax, the Trailblazer, and the Buick Envista that I recently reviewed. Now, before we dive into today's video, I do want to extend a huge thank you to Tim Dahle Nissan of Murray, Utah for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today. If you guys are in the market for a new or used Nissan, make sure you reach out to them and let them know that SchwayZ sent you. I'm going to put their information down in the description below. Now, this is the second generation Nissan Kicks. The first generation was released back in 2017, and it was essentially a tall hatchback that replaced the Nissan Juke. It was refreshed back in 2021 with a facelift, and here in 2025 we finally have the second generation model. It's bigger, it's boxier, it definitely has an attractive exterior and interior styling, and this is Nissan's most affordable crossover, and it starts under $30,000. And in today's video we're going to discuss why you should consider this Nissan Kicks as your next subcompact crossover. Now, starting off with the exterior styling, the design is definitely one of the biggest changes with this second generation. It's added a lot more personality and I would like to call spunk to the exterior. Now, starting off with the front end, this one is the SR trim level, as you can see with the badging. And so this one has some additional bells and whistles that the lower trim levels don't come with, that being the SV and the S trim level. The SR is currently the top of the line for the Kicks. But as you can see up front, you do have a gloss black grille. And even though it might get scratched a little bit easier, it does look really nice, especially with that white exterior color. Now, every single Nissan Kicks comes with LED headlamps and automatic high beam. You also have the LED daytime running lights, which look really nice. I'm going to try to throw it up on the screen right now as to what it looks like with the lights on. Now, in the center, you have the updated Nissan logo, and then coming down below that, you've got your active air shutters for your front splitter, along with your front parking sensors and your sensor for your adaptive cruise control. Every single Nissan Kicks comes with adaptive cruise control out of the gate. Now, while we're down here, I do want to point out how this front splitter has this interesting kind of textured material to it. And Nissan says that the design styling of the Kicks is inspired by sneakers. So you definitely have some of this kind of sneaker-like styling to it, and you have the same type of styling located across this side skirt over here, so you might get a better angle or view of what that texture looks like. And it's not just painted on, you actually can feel there's like a 3D texture to that side skirt. It's kind of interesting. I haven't seen that on too many other vehicles, but again, it just adds to the personality of the Kicks. Now, coming across the side of the vehicle, one of the first things you'll notice, there's definitely a boxier shape than the prior generation. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Chevy Trailblazer, but I think this has a little bit more personality to it. I think this is one of the best looking Nissans that they currently sell. Now, in terms of the length here, you're looking at about 171.9 inches long. The width is about 70.9 inches wide, and the height is about 64 inches tall. In all of those proportions, it's actually better than the prior generation. Now, in terms of ground clearance, they've also improved that, upwards of 8.4 inches on the Nissan Kicks. So it's not an off-roader, but it definitely has a little bit more off-road chops than the prior generation. Now, jumping to the wheels, this one being the SR trim level, it comes with the optional 19-inch wheels. These are the largest wheels you can get on the Kicks. Obviously, if you pick the lower trim levels, they're going to be smaller diameter. But then I do want to talk about the color options here. So as you can see, the entire top of the vehicle is blacked out, and that's because the Nissan Kicks can be had with a two-tone roof. You can actually get this with a red color as well. It's kind of reminiscent of the old Nissan Juke kind of had that feature as well, and I think it looks really good. It pops out, it stands out a little bit different from the crowd, and then I do like how you have this piano black plastic over here on the side view mirror, which matches the roof panel, and then you have a little bit of chrome here as well that kind of fades away into the C-pillar. Speaking of the C-pillar, you can notice here that you've got the Kicks logo, but it's actually transparent, so you can see a little bit of the painted surface located underneath, so it's kind of like a floating C-pillar. It's a pretty nice touch. And then coming across the rear end, you can see this large body panel that merges into the rear tail lights. Now, the rear end is definitely a little bit different than any other Nissan product. You do get full LEDs as standard on every single trim level, and then it kind of merges into this piano black plastic over here, but down here it's more of a gray plastic, so it's more of just kind of a typical plastic that will fade over time if you leave it out in the sun. You do have your Kicks badging over here and the SR all-wheel drive badging on the right-hand side. And then down below that, you got your exhaust port located on the left-hand side of the vehicle. Lastly, I do want to point out that you have a little spoiler located up at the top, and that finishes off the exterior styling of the all-new Kicks. Now, jumping under the hood of the Nissan Kicks is an all-new powertrain for this particular model. It's a 2-liter, 4-cylinder engine, naturally aspirated, that produces 141 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. This thing do 0 to 60 probably in the high 9-second range, but it's not built for that. Now, all of that power is sent through, unfortunately, an Xtronic CVT transmission. However, for the first time ever, you can get either a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive Nissan Kicks for just a $1,500 premium. Fuel economy is pretty decent as well. We're looking at 28 in the city, 35 on the highway for a combined 31. If you choose the all-wheel drive trim level, it's going to be 1 mpg worse. The gas tank on this thing is just about 12 gallons. All right, next up, let's jump on the inside and talk about the interior. And here's a spoiler. It's actually really nice. Now, first, I do want to show you the Nissan key. This is the same key they've been using for years on the Altimas and the Sentras. It's pretty nice. You got your lock, unlock, panic button, and you've got remote start on this one as well. So jumping inside the Kicks, you'll find the use of materials are actually pleasantly surprising on the interior. First off, starting off with the door panel, this is all soft touch material over here. So it's kind of like this fake leather touch surfaces here. And then you've got contrast red and white stitching. Really nice and premium. Again, this is the SR trim level, and a lot of these color choices are because it's the SR, but still, this is not a very expensive vehicle. Now down here, you kind of have this faux carbon fiber material, but it's still soft touch where you rest your elbow. You also got more contrast stitching, automatic window switches up here, and your mirror controls, of course, that's to be expected. Down here, you do have some hard touch plastic, and then you've got a little storage compartment and a cup holder slot. Now the base speaker setup is a 4-speaker audio system, but this SR trim level comes with the optional 10-speaker Bose audio system. We'll talk more on that when we jump to the seats. Now, talking about these seats, unfortunately, no matter what trim level you get, you don't have any type of power functionality. You also don't have any type of lumbar support, so you just got to be comfortable with the seats as is. But they have a really cool pattern to them, so you kind of have this checkered red and black cloth material. You also have this faux leather on the side bolsters, along with some more of that red and white stitching, and just looks really nice. This doesn't feel like a cheap car or something that's budget. Up here, you'll notice this is what I was talking about in terms of the speaker setup. Your 10-speaker Bose audio system has speakers inside of the headrests on the driver and the passenger side. Just a nice touch to make it sound a little bit better. Now, no matter what trim level you pick, these are 6-way manual adjustable. Heated seats are an optional feature. They don't even come on this SR unless you option for it. But regardless of what trim level you get, Nissan says these are zero-gravity seats, which is really just a fancy marketing term that Nissan's been using on a lot of Nissan and Infiniti products. And they are really comfortable seats, don't get me wrong. But they use that on pretty much every single vehicle they sell. Now, jumping on the inside, this is a huge improvement over the prior generation. Now, first off, I do want to point out, when you close the door, sounds pretty solid. It doesn't sound flimsy whatsoever. You do have this panel black plastic over here. This is all soft touch material, which is very surprising. The Chevy Trax I reviewed somewhat recently had hard touch plastic material. This is all, you know, kind of more of a premium feeling material. You've got some more of that red and white stitching. And then even this carbon fiber trim, which they could have left plastic, this is soft touch. So it's kind of like this padded material over here all the way onto the passenger side. And I do like how this entire dashboard is kind of more boxy. It kind of makes you feel a little bit more upright. It almost feels like the windshield is kind of small because you have this large dashboard. I like the personality to it. The design is really nice. Now, to the left of the steering wheel, you do have your heated steering wheel controls. This vehicle comes with optional heated steering wheel, and you have your lane centering on the highest trim levels. The base trim level only has the lane departure warning. It doesn't have any type of lane centering. Now, talking about the steering wheel here, they've used this on other Nissan products, of course. It is leather wrapped, although the lower trim levels come with a plastic steering wheel. I do recommend getting the higher trim so you can get the leather wrapped with the heated functionality. Some more of that red stitching, which is kind of a hallmark of the SR trim level. You got your volume controls, your roller knob to regulate your instrument gauge cluster display, seek track buttons, your menu button, and then on the right hand side is your Nissan Pro Pilot Assist with your adaptive cruise control and your highway driving assist with lane centering. And then down at the bottom, this is a flat bottom steering wheel, although this is definitely not a sporty vehicle, and we'll talk about that when we get behind the wheel. Now, to the left hand side of the steering wheel are your turn signal stock and your headlight controls. On the right hand side is your windshield wiper stock. Another thing to point out about the steering wheel, it is tilt and telescopic, which is not something that even the Frontier comes with. Now, turning this vehicle on, your push to start button is over here. You'll notice that you have two 12.3-inch displays. They're really massive for a vehicle of this size. Now, if you pick the lower trim levels, you either get a 7-inch gauge cluster and a 12.3-inch screen on the SV trim level, or the S trim level only comes with a 7-inch gauge cluster and a 7-inch infotainment screen. But still, 7 inches really isn't that bad for a subcompact crossover. Now, talking about the center screen over here, it's pretty easy and simple to understand. You've got some pretty nice graphics. I've reviewed this in other Nissan products, including the Altima and even some Infiniti products have a very similar gauge cluster screen. You can also adjust what this screen looks like. So if you hit this menu button and you go to change meter view, it will adjust what the gauge cluster looks like, which is a nice touch. And like I said, even the Chevy Trax, it comes with a smaller gauge cluster and it's not customizable. Now, the only thing you can't really do here is do a full screen navigation, which would have been a nice added feature, but that's typically reserved to luxury cars. Now, jumping over to the center screen, this runs the latest Nissan software. I reviewed it in the Altima I reviewed a couple years ago. It's a really nice software. It's much better than the previous generation. You got your quick access buttons over here on the left-hand side, your home button, your music button. And I gotta say, it works pretty well. It's pretty snappy. There's not really any issues here. This is kind of your main widget screen. And then a couple things to point out is you do have a 360-degree camera on this SR trim level. There's a quick access button located over here near the volume knob. And it's the same one they've been using for a few years on Nissan products, but it's pretty decent. I mean, you don't really expect a 360 camera on a subcompact affordable crossover. And then in terms of the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, everything but the base trim level comes with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The base S trim level, since it has the smaller infotainment screen, it comes with wired Apple CarPlay, but I'm not certain if Android Auto is included at all on the base trim. Somebody in the comments below, if you have the S trim level, let me know if Android Auto is included, but it's definitely a wired connection for the Apple CarPlay. Now, moving down below that, you got your air vent controls, physical volume knob, and your seat track buttons. And then down here are your haptic feedback controls for your climate control settings. Now, unfortunately, they're touch sensitive, but at least they're always in this section. You don't have to hunt around on the screen. You do have heated seats on this one. That's the optional feature. You got single zone climate control where you can regulate the temperature over here. And then you can also regulate the fan speed and your passenger heated seat as well. Now, moving down below that, this particular vehicle comes with the wireless charging pad. That's an optional feature, and it fits pretty much the largest phone on the market today. You've also got two USB-C ports. And then moving below that, you got your electronic parking brake along with your auto hold functionality. And then this is something that the Chevy Trax did not come with, and that is different drive modes. So you can cycle through sport, standard, eco, and snow, depending on what driving conditions you're in. You've got a pretty nice plastic and fake leather wrapped gear selector. I do like the SR trim badging over here with those red accents. Then behind that are some pretty massive cup holders and then a small center arm console. But this is soft touch material, and I do like how this trim extends all the way across the center arm console all the way onto the passenger side. It just makes this feel a little bit more premium. This is all soft touch material where you're going to rest your knee at. And then onto the passenger side, you've got a pretty decent sized glove compartment. Now, another interesting feature on the SR trim level is Nissan says you've got ambient lighting on the interior of this particular car, which is, again, not something you ever see on any subcompact crossover. Now, moving up above you, you don't have any rear view camera mirror, but that's not to be expected. You've got a sunglass holder. And then my particular vehicle does come with the panoramic sunroof. Now, I don't believe the Chevy Trax or the Trailblazer come with a pano sunroof even as an option. This is, of course, not a standard feature, but it does open up and it is available on the SR trim level. And it's nice that you still have a sunshade, so if it's a hot summer's day, you can still close this up. That pretty much finishes off the first row. Let's jump in the second row and show you what it looks like back there. Okay, jumping into the second row of the Kicks, the use of materials aren't as nice in the second row, but that's to be expected. This is all hard touch plastics. However, over here where you're gonna rest your elbow, this is that same soft touch fake carbon fiber material, and they've extended that contrast stitching over in the second row, which is unnecessary, but a nice touch. Over here, you've got a cup holder, and then jumping onto the inside, the seats also carry over the same design language as the first row, and even the headrest has contrast stitching. Again, something they didn't have to do, but it's very appreciated. Now, jumping back here, Nissan says you have about 34.5 inches of legroom behind the first row, and I gotta say, it's plenty of space back here. Definitely very similar to the competition. I've got no problem sitting behind myself in the driver's seat. No rear air vents back here, and then you do have two USB-C ports, and you've got a center arm console, which is not something all compact crossovers come with, and it is nice and leather wrapped, so you can rest your elbow here here not have any issues. Up above you, you have your panoramic sunroof. Now, because of this moonroof, headroom may feel a little bit compromised. I'm 5'9". I've got about 2 inches of space above my head, but if you're taller than that, it might feel a little bit cramped inside of the second row. Now, jumping into the trunk, this of course isn't power operated, but back here is a pretty decent amount of space. So Nissan says 30 cubic feet of space behind the second row. If you fold the second row down, you get upwards of 60 cubic feet of space behind the first row. That's a really impressive amount of space for a subcompact crossover. You got little storage compartments over here on the left and the right hand side, and then pulling this up, you've got little compartments where you can throw a bunch of different knickknacks and random items in here. There is no spare tire on this particular one, but you do have a fix-a-flat kit. I also want to point out you've got little grocery hooks over here on the left and the right hand side. Okay, next up, the moment you've all been waiting for, and that is pricing. Let's talk about it, because like I mentioned in the beginning, this is one of the most affordable new crossovers you can buy. Now, the S trim level has an impressive starting price of $21,830. If you jump up to the SV trim level, that's $23,680, and then the SR trim level, which is the one I'm reviewing on the screen today, is $26,180. Now, keep in mind, none of those prices include the $1,390 destination fee, and then if you do want all-wheel drive, like the one I'm showing off today, that's about a $1,500 premium over the front-wheel drive version. Now, in case you're wondering how much this one costs with the moonroof and the heated seats and all of the additional bells and whistles, this is pretty much the most fully equipped version you can get. It's $32,140. And again, that's a steal considering the average price of a new car is about $48,000. So this is well below average pricing for new cars today, and you do get a lot of bang for your buck. All right, next up, let's get this thing on the road and see how it drives. Now, one of the first things I have noticed driving around in just this parking lot over here is how nimble this car feels. I mean, you kind of expect it with a compact crossover, but wow, this thing just feels so maneuverable. It's very easy to turn around, and it just feels like a glove. It just kind of wraps around you, and it's something that I love about subcompact crossovers. But what I like is you still have kind of that higher riding position. This feels a little bit taller than the Chevy Trax I reviewed, which felt more like a sedan that just happened to have a crossover body. This feels a little bit taller, feels more like a traditional crossover. Now, I'm here at a dead stop. I put it into sport mode. Let's see how this thing accelerates. Now, I'm not gonna gun it down too hard because it's a brand new car, it's not mine, but I just want to see how it feels, and it feels okay. I mean, it feels like a small 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. The CVT has that typical droney sound. Definitely not my favorite. I wish this thing had a more conventional 8-speed automatic, but CVTs are kind of the norm aside from the Chevy Trax. But it feels pretty good. I mean, it's definitely plenty power to pass people on the freeway. I don't know if a fully loaded car is going to be as quick to accelerate, but this is plenty of power. You don't expect this thing to feel like a sports car. But let's see how this feels on some bumps. Let's see how the suspension soaks things up. So here we are about to drive over some train tracks. Let's see how it feels. It's okay. Funny enough, there's a Nissan Kicks prior generation just crossing us right now. Here we are again over some train tracks. Let's see how this feels. It's definitely a little bit on the rougher side. I gotta say, I think the Trax is a little bit of a softer vehicle, but Chevy always does a really good job with its suspension. They always feel a little bit softer than some of the competition. But it's not terrible, but it's not as comfortable and refined as the interior might lead you to believe. Now, what I do like about this car is the suite of safety features that come on all trim levels. We're talking adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring. You still have, I believe, lane departure warning, although lane keep assist, and the enhanced blind spot monitoring where it could push you out of the way. That all comes on the higher trim levels, but even the base trim level comes with some pretty sweet safety features that some of the competition don't even offer. I will say I would personally stay away from the S trim level. I feel like it's a little bit too bare bones. I think you gotta go at least SV and above to be able to unlock some cool features and to get a little bit more nicer tech on the inside. Now, in terms of warranty, for those of you worried about the reliability of the CVT, you do get a 3-year, 36,000 mile bumper to bumper warranty, 5 years, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty, and then you do get 2 years of complimentary maintenance from Nissan. Now, to finish off the driving portion, it drives great. I mean, it drives like what you would expect a subcompact crossover. I think the exterior and the interior looks and amenities feel a little bit more upscale, whereas the driving dynamics feel just kind of like a typical entry-level crossover, but that's that's not bad. I mean, it's what you would expect for a sub $30,000 car. So to finish off this video, what are my overall thoughts on the Nissan Kicks? Well, I continue to get pleasantly surprised with how good affordable crossovers are getting nowadays. I reviewed the Chevy Trax, the Buick Envista, and I was very impressed with them. And the Nissan Kicks is right up there as one of my favorite affordable new crossovers. It just amazes me how much value they're able to pack on a sub $30,000 starting price. Now again, this one's 32 grand, but you could easily find one for under $30,000. Now what surprised me most about the Kicks is not necessarily the exterior styling, which I think looks really good, but it's the interior. In terms of the material quality and the technology, the interior of this, I would say, punches above its weight. It feels more like the interior of a Nissan Rogue or Toyota RAV4. It does not feel like the interior of a subcompact crossover. The fact that you can get all this technology and all of the, I would say, quasi-luxurious features that you get inside of the Kicks, it's a very impressive bargain. And if you guys are in the market for a affordable subcompact crossover, well, here you have it. The Nissan Kicks has personality, it's got great technology on the inside, and now with the option of all-wheel drive, you can pretty much drive it year-round without having to worry about getting stuck in the snow. So what are your thoughts on the Nissan Kicks? Would you take this over the Chevy Trax, the Buick Envista, the Chevy Trailblazer? And the list is starting to grow, which is a good thing. Let me know down in the comments below. And then if you guys are interested in this one, it is currently for sale at Tim Dahle Nissan at the time of reviewing this video. I'm going to put their information down in the description below. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly videos. Also check me out on all the social media at SchwayZ_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay SchwayZ, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.